Hello and welcome to Odds Premier League match day 8 after the international break with a new manager for England, surprising one, Thomas Tuchel. We are back, Tom, with a derby, Tottenham, West Ham, and also Liverpool, Chelsea. Hello, Tom Rennie.
Hello, yeah, some fantastic games this weekend. And look, the international break is normally quite dull, but the Thomas Tuchel thing, yeah, what a good story, yeah? What a good story. It took me by surprise. I wouldn't say I'm fully on board, but come back to me when we win the World Cup and I'll change my tune.
Of course, he's a great manager. We know him very well. Let's see. As in a national team. Well, time to analyze this new match day with some great games we are looking forward to. So, guys, remember, of course, leave your comments, tell us your tips. And now let's go on with the show. And we start with a massive one. Tottenham, West Ham. I'm sure Tom Rennie is already nervous about this game. Luckily, West Ham beat Ipswich before the international break, so it gave some calm and peace to Julen Lopetegui. Even Paquetá wasn't in the squad in the last game of Brazil that you were heavily criticizing in our show, I must admit. Tom, and Spurs is a roller coaster, incredible game, the one that they lost against Brighton before the break.
Yeah, tricky game this in lots of ways because Tottenham have been extremely inconsistent in the opening few weeks of the season. A couple of their performances have been fantastic. A couple have been kind of nonsensical, really, including that game against Brighton that you alluded to, which went the way I predicted with a different winner, right? Both teams scoring, the over score line. I went for Tottenham, Brighton won it in the end, but even I didn't think Tottenham would be 2-0 up and cruising and find a way to lose that game, and they did. And that is, you know, one of those conversations we keep having about 𝗀𝗻𝗄𝐿 and Tottenham is, can they close a game out? Are they, you know, professional, for the want of a better word, when it comes to their winning a game and they're going to see it through? By that, I mean what 𝗀𝗍 Mourinho would have done. Let's get a couple of defenders on. Let's low block. We're 2-0 up. The game is won. That sort of stuff. And they don't. And sometimes that's fantastic. And I love to watch Tottenham. I love to go to Tottenham whenever I can. But also, it leads to results like this. And there's been a few of these during Postecoglou's time in charge. And so there are some questions to answer there for a manager who's brought a lot to Spurs and a lot to the Premier League. But already we're in the has he brought everything he can to Tottenham stage of the conversation. That's away from home, though. At home, they've been pretty decent. I think that the Arsenal game is a beast in and of itself, right? They lost that game and didn't play amazingly well, but I think it's important to say it's Arsenal. They're great. Spurs currently aren't. Look at the Brentford game more for a guide as to how Tottenham are at home. They'll create chances. They'll keep attacking. They're creatively very strong. The defence is good in terms of calibre of player. Van de Ven, Romero, both fit. I think midfield is where Tottenham keep on losing games. I think maybe they abandon it too much and they can't quite work out what the right lineup is. And sometimes there's not enough 𝗛𝗍𝗻 Deschamps style water carriers in that central midfield. Sometimes it's Sarr and Bissouma. Maybe there's too many. Sometimes it's no Sarr and no Bissouma. It's Bentancur and Maddison as a sort of midfield pairing with 𝐿𝐿𝐶 slightly more offensive. But even that trio, great at Man United, right? So are they good? I don't know. If they're up against a real battling midfield, I think I'd struggle to see it. So it's an interesting Spurs lineup. As for West Ham, the win over Ipswich was desperately needed. Away from home, they're actually pretty good this season. A draw at Fulham, win at Palace. And that's pretty impressive. I think the draw at Brentford was pretty impressive in terms of coming back from being down after 20 seconds or some such time. So away from home, they've been pretty decent. And at home, before the Ipswich game, that was the big concern. Now that's over. You know, West Ham aren't going to go down, right? They're not going to be in a relegation battle. The trouble is the aim is to get back into Europe. That's top 6, top 7. At the moment, I think they would struggle to do that because the home form has not been good enough. And I still don't quite know what they are under Lopetegui, and I think that Lopetegui would put himself in that conversation as well. Still no Niclas Füllkrug, which is a joke, quite frankly. We're at week 8 now of the season, and we've not seen this guy who was meant to be the striker. West Ham have had Mikel Antonio up front still this season, and again, I've said this to you loads of times. I love Mikel Antonio. He brings so much to West Ham as this kind of runs the channels, holds the ball up, even scores goals. Trouble is, he's too old now. He cannot last 90 minutes, and you can't ask him to keep playing 90 minutes. And so you saw it against Brentford when he dropped off, when he came off. West Ham sort of fell apart and held on in the end in that game. And as much as 𝗀𝗲𝗿𝗀 is great, if he's going to be the central striker, you've got to play different. Danny Ings is not great. And if he comes on, he's only good if something happens in the penalty area and he comes alive like he did at Fulham. So all sorts of issues there with West Ham. Still no 𝗀𝗏𝗏 in the midfield. Still is a bit of a mess. I'm not a fan of 𝐷𝗲𝗏𝗏. As you know, I don't think he's very good and doesn't suit the league. A balance of Soucek, Alvarez, and another would make sense. And I'm not sure it is Paqueta, frankly. He's been really poor for West Ham all season. I know he had some moments against Ipswich, but they're terrible. Beyond that, he has offered almost nothing to West Ham this season. If it were me, I would look for somebody else playing that role in central midfield. I'd personally love to see Mohamed Kudus play in a number 10 role and carry them up the field from a central position and have 3 players ahead of him to pass to. But that's me. I'm not sure we're going to see that this weekend. So how's the game going to go? Well, West Ham have a pretty good record at Tottenham in recent years, across the last 5 years. They were the first team to win there. They won there last season in a kind of smash and grab classic Moyes kind of victory. And Tottenham are susceptible to what West Ham have got to offer. That is counter-attacking play against the high line. I would not want to defend a high line against Kudus, Bowen and Antonio. That just seems like it could be an error to me. But I also think Spurs at home in a game like this could overwhelm West Ham. I've not seen much of the old low block their way to a point they were so good at last season. So firstly, I think both teams score. I think West Ham's record of 10 goals in 7 is pretty decent. Tottenham 14 in 7 is also pretty good. They've both also conceded above a goal a game this season. So all that is there for both teams to score. Then pick a winner. I'd shade for Tottenham. Tottenham win both teams to score is 2.5. A group bet of Tottenham to win, 1-0, 2-0, 2-1. I know it's not both teams to score, but at 3.5, that is worth a little flutter. 2-1 is, and that feels like the scoreline it's going to be. But don't discount the draw here as well. West Ham have upped their game over the years away at Tottenham so many times, and Spurs are susceptible to what West Ham have. And a draw at 4.6, that might be worth it.
Okay, the both teams to score market is only 1.5. So if you want a higher odds, you have to spice it up. Last season, as you said, 2-1 for West Ham. Next game, also in London, Fulham, Aston Villa, another good one because as Fulham, they are doing great things this season. They only lost in Manchester twice. And even against Man City, taking the lead before that defeat at the Etihad, they beat Nottingham Forest, they beat Newcastle, so they are a very dangerous team. Aston Villa also doing a great season, although they drew the last 2 games. The game against Man United was a bit boring, Tom.
Well, it was, yeah. It was one of the worst games of the season, and it will be when we get to the end of the campaign as well. Can we just take a second to crow? Can we crow for a few seconds after we said 2 weeks ago Fulham score first and Manchester City win? Do we get some applause for this? That was like 9-1. That was out of nowhere, and that came in for us last week. So I hope you were listening, folks. That was a big bet that came in. And I went for it mainly because it's happened in every Man City home game this season, right? So, follow the trends, but also because Fulham are good, playing really good stuff this season. I think Adama Traore's rejuvenation, his latest rejuvenation, has been great to watch. He's always had a lot of attributes, but doesn't always deliver. And look, he missed some chances in the City game that probably would have seen them win that match, but he was so good at points in that game. City were worried about him. Raul Jimenez, that amazing assist for Pereira himself. Smith Rowe, when he's been fit this season, has looked really good. And when he's been able to play, by that I mean that the 90 minutes, he's going off on 70 for obvious reasons. I think that Anderson at the back alongside 𝗵𝗲𝗀, who I don't particularly rate, but he's made 𝗵𝗲𝗀 better because Anderson's so good. The goalkeeper, Leno, loads of great elements about Fulham this season that I've been really impressive with. Marco Silva wants a team that plays, but he also wants a team that battles. They look to me, if they can continue this all season like they could qualify for Conference League football, maybe Europa League, if they can continue doing all things at all times, being strong defensively, strong offensively, battling in every game, and individuals coming to the fore like Adama Traore unexpectedly. It's all working for Fulham right now. Will it last all season? Maybe not. I hope not. In terms of Aston Villa, look, I think you're absolutely right to pick out just how bad that game was against Manchester United. But, we have seen that so many times with teams who play in Europe, smaller squads, bit of a after the Lord Mayor's show scenario where it's all very flat and deflated, didn't lose the game. And that might be crucial in the end. I know you might be like, oh, they should beat Man United. Yeah, sure. But better teams have lost to worse teams in that scenario, and Villa didn't. Now we've had international break. We had another John Duran goal for Colombia during their World Cup qualifying. Keeps doing it over and over again. I'm going to pick that out again here. But still, Villa look very, very strong. They look like they've got great depth. There's some doubt as we speak about Amadou Onana and 𝐬𝐿𝐴, but I think they'll be available. And John McGinn's still struggling with that hamstring problem. Let's hope he's back as well. So there are some doubts maybe about Villa, but for me, I still think I would be betting on them for the foreseeable future. Villa win on its own is really high here because of how good Fulham have been start of the season. Just Villa win at 2.8. Absolutely, I would take that. And in terms of spicing it up a bit, look, both teams to score here. Villa have scored 12 goals in 7. That's an excellent record of goals scored. Fulham, 10 in 7. That's above 1 a game. So the averages tell you they'll both score. Villa win on both teams to score here is a frankly astonishing 5. That's 4-1 for Villa win and both teams score. That's 2-1. That's 3-1. I can see that. I think both teams will score a few goals here. I can see it being a quite open, entertaining sort of game, especially after international break. A draw at 3.4, I wouldn't discount as well. And I've got to take it, even though it didn't happen last week against Man United or 2 weeks ago. Duran, last goal scorer. It's happening for Colombia. It keeps happening for Villa. And until that pattern stops happening, I'm going to keep betting on it. So take Duran, last goal scorer. If you want to double that with a Villa win, that's really good odds.
Surprisingly, Aston Villa, they are the underdog for this game, so great odds to back them. Even double chance for Aston Villa pays 1.6. So if they draw or Aston Villa wins, you win your bet. Aston Villa playing in the Champions League against Bologna at home later on. Then for the relegation battle, we have Ipswich, Everton, 4 points for Ipswich. Lost to West Ham, as we said, after 4 consecutive draws. Still no wins. Everton, 3 consecutive positive results. Perhaps they are coming out from the darkness. Is also a good idea, probably going or backing Everton somehow, Tom, because they are the underdogs as well for this game, or perhaps also both teams to score could be another option.
So I think we've done this show for like a couple of years, right? And I wonder how many times I've ever said back Everton. It must be a very, very low amount. Yeah. And I'm not going to start now. I'm not going to start now. Look, I mean, Ipswich weren't good at West Ham. I think that's really worth saying. Did West Ham play well? Yes, they did. And they deserve a lot of credit for the amount of shots they had, the positivity in their play. It was a bit to and fro at points in that game, but West Ham just overwhelmed Ipswich Town. And 4-1 did not flatter West Ham. That could have been more. But on the Ipswich side of things, defensively, I've mentioned Greaves before at centre-half. I think he really struggled against Mikel Antonio's physicality. I think O'Shea, who they brought in from Burnley, not good enough to play in the Premier League. I think Ben Johnson really struggled back at West Ham. Calvin Phillips had a howler of a game. Maybe he just can't play at that stadium. I don't know. But he was just horrendous against West Ham. Tackling, passing, tracking, all of it, useless. So real concerns about Ipswich in a game where they're not going to have the ball and they've got to kind of go toe-to-toe. That's not going to be this game. What Everton are going to do is not want the ball. And they're going to work the channels, and they're going to pump to 𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐿𝑖n, and they're going to get someone like Dwight McNeil to carry upfield and try and create something. And, you know, if that all comes together for Everton, yeah, sure, there's every chance they can win this game. But they aren't going to, like, spice it up and dominate the ball. We aren't going to have a 60-40 possession metric in favour of Everton. It's going to be in favour of Ipswich. And that might well help Ipswich Town, because West Ham didn't let them have the ball last week, or 2 weeks ago, I keep saying last week, which was really, really tough for them to cope with. They kept swarming forward with several players. Again, Everton are not going to do that. If Everton get a corner, Ipswich could be in serious trouble. If Everton score the first goal, Ipswich could be in trouble, but I still think go under if you are going to bet on Everton here. But for me, I just fancy Ipswich Town here. I think they're a goal-scoring threat. I think Delap up front has proved himself to be a really good player at this level. I think if you can get Clark and Hutchinson and Burns and one or two others running at the Everton defence, they're going to panic. And as I speak to you today, I don't know whether Brentford is going to be fit for Everton. And that could be a huge differential in this game. Because if it's Michael Keane and James 𝗵𝗂𝐿, they will concede goals or terrible penalties, as they did against Newcastle last time out. If it's Brentford, I may well tip for Everton. But if he's out, and at the moment I have it that he's out, I'll go Ipswich, but look at the under score lines. Everton always look at the under in every single scenario. Ipswich have only scored 6 goals this season. That's under 1 per game. And you might say they've both conceded so many goals. Sure, look at goals scored first before you look at goals conceded, because if they both can't score, even the worst defenses you can imagine can actually look pretty decent, right? So go at the under, go at Ipswich, under 3.5, really conservative. And Ipswich to win is 3.25. Under 2.5 goals in the match and Ipswich win is 5.5. So pick a team, go the under. I'm going Ipswich.
Still out of the relegation spots, Ipswich with 4 points because Crystal Palace, Southampton and Wolves, they are doing even worse this season. Next game at Old Trafford, Man United, Brentford, still with Ten Hag in the job, even if no wins in the last 5 games, with a lot of draws, it's true, but only 2 wins in the Premier League. Luckily for the Red Devils, they are welcoming hosting Brentford, a team that is doing a great season, but because of their home form. Away, 3 games, Tom, 0 points.
Yeah, look, I think you explained it really well. That Man United, I think we all thought Ten Hag was going to stay, but at this point, we're all a bit incredulous that he has, because watching football, certainly Premier League football across the last 30 years, we expect the sacking, right? We kind of like, yeah, of course he's going to go. They've been poor. It's 1 win in 5 for Manchester United at the start of the season. And also, they've only scored 5 goals. Like, what are you talking about here? Like, this is so below par for any team in the league, frankly. Like, they have scored less goals than Ipswich Town in the Premier League this season. And I think Ipswich haven't done enough. I just said that to you in the last one, right? And Man U have scored less. And this is the 3rd year of the Ten Hag project. Like, all of it just doesn't make sense at the moment. And at some point, it's got to improve. The backing he has been given, he would not get at Chelsea, at Arsenal, whatever. He wouldn't get it. So in some ways, credit to Manchester United, because they have decided this is their man. And I kind of hope it comes good for him, because he's taken some serious grief, Erik Ten Hag. And let's hope it does. But, you know, the injury list is long, as it seems to always be with Manchester United. There's potentially no Mazraoui, Maguire, Diallo, 𝐿𝐿𝐴, Mason Mount, as ever. Luke Shaw remains out. 𝗵𝗏, is he even still a player? Lenny Yoro, we've not seen him since he came in. So it's a long old injury list. We could still have Johnny Evans at centre-half for this game, who's, you know, the same age as me, so very young. Good to see him still playing. Haven't played forever. So loads of issues there. And offensively, you know, 𝗍𝐼𝐻𝐸's a young player. He's had some good moments, some bad moments. Rasmus Højlund, you know, is a good player, but he's been injured a lot and still young. So loads of issues there. And the midfield too, I mean, we haven't seen the best of any new midfield pairing that the Man United have. So all sorts of issues there. Brentford, I think you made a good point as well. Away from home is where they have struggled. But then you look at who they played away from home, Tottenham and Man City, with the last couple of away games. Well in the game both times, scored after 20-odd seconds in both games, went on to lose them. Might do them a favour not to score in the first minute in this game, or first 90 seconds. I think it took 90 seconds against Wolves last time out. And look, at this point, I think you could cut and paste my Brentford preview every game we've done for the last 2 years. It's always the same, because nothing really changes. And you might say, what about Tony? What about whoever? Yeah, sure, but the style has not changed. There'll be a land of the Giants back line, who are also pretty decent footballers, in people like Nathan Collins and Christopher Aya. There'll be pacing behind in 𝗵𝗏𝗏, and I think 𝗻𝐿𝐴 remains out, so it'll be 𝗪𝗏 up front alongside him, and the midfield of Norgard and Janelt and whoever else they put in there. They're going to work their backsides off to keep Brentford in this game. The game plan is there. You know what they'll do. We always underestimate them, and there's every chance they could get something from this game. But I just feel it's so important for Manchester United to win it, and Brentford's away form is not good enough. Take a narrow Manchester United win. The pattern suggests the under, so go for the under. United win and under 2.5 goals in this match. Now, think of it realistically. It's a 1-0 Man United win or a 2-0 Manchester United win. These are very common score lines for Manchester United at home across the last few decades. It's 5.5. That's wild. That is a wild odd for you to bet on, right? It's just crazy to me. So a 2-0 Man U win at home is 5.5, and you also get 1-0 covered in this bet. Take it. 5.5. Want to be more conservative? Under 3.5, and Man U is 2.88. That's more what I'd expect. But a low-scoring Manchester United win that gets them the points, they won't play well, and convinces nobody. It screams it. Also, don't discount the group bet. 1-0, 2-0, 2-1, 3.5. Take that as well.
On Thursday, we have Fenerbahce, Man United, and you know who is coaching Fenerbahce? Jose Mourinho.
So exciting. So exciting.
It would be poetic, Mourinho meeting Ten Hag in that game. Well, next game, Newcastle, Brighton. This is a really tough one. Newcastle really favorite for this one, 2.05. Brighton, or both teams actually, with 12 points, but Newcastle, they are winless in the last 3. Brighton, again, Tom, it looks like a safe bet going for both teams to score with this team. 5 out of the last 7 games were both teams to score, and again, that incredible win before the break against Tottenham.
Yeah, any scenario on this game, do both teams to score. They're both going to score in this game. They both find ways to score goals. My only sort of caveat with Newcastle is 𝐿𝐸'𝐴𝐵. Is he going to be fit? Because I think you saw in the Everton game before the break, you know, Anthony Gordon missed a penalty in that game. He's a very good player, and they've got lots of really good footballers, Newcastle, but they have a player who, for me, is exceptional, and that is 𝐿𝐸'𝐴𝐵. And if he is not there, the goal-scoring threat, it halves. You know, they just don't have the players of his quality in front of goal when the moment comes. Callum Wilson's been out for a long time as well, so they did the Isak 75, Wilson 15 thing for a while, or vice versa. Not able to play either has really affected Newcastle United. There is no one of the quality of that pair in that really important role when they're missing. So I have it this morning that Isak's going to be back, but of course we won't really find out to the weekend because of international break, and we've not seen him train and all that sort of stuff. So if he is back, I'd quite fancy Newcastle here because everything else is in place. There's been some issues about Dan Burn playing centre-half instead of Sven Botman, but I think he looks okay. He looks okay. He's not as good as Botman, but he's been fine alongside Fabian Schär. I think Nick Pope's made some outstanding saves. And I think midfield, 𝗛𝗏𝗏's getting better and better and better as the weeks go on, just very, very incrementally, but he is improving. And the midfielder, Bruno Guimaraes, Joelinton, and 𝗛𝗏, it's terrific. That's top 5 midfield. I think it's a really good balance. And if one struggles, I know Newcastle fans have their issues with Sean Longstaff, but I think he's good. Maybe not a starter in 38 games, and if they're in Europe or whatever, but really good man to come in if one of those 3 are sort of flagging. So loads of positives around Newcastle, but they do really need Isak. In terms of Brighton, what a comeback a couple of weeks ago. You know, we continue to underestimate them because of, you know, on paper, you're a bit like, Danny Welbeck? Danny Welbeck? Okay, fine. I mean, we'll see how they get on. I'm sure they're going to get relegated. And of course they don't, right? So that's all of our fault. That's my fault for continually underestimating Brighton and Hove Albion. The way they play, it's such a joy at times. The midfield, the rotations they're able to bring in, is it Baleba one week or it's Reefer the other week, and they can kind of create a new midfield pairing from nowhere, depending on their individual metrics and abilities to play the opponent they're playing against. Loads of great positives, but you know, for me, I just think that high line they play is so at times beatable. You know, we saw it with the Man U game a few weeks ago. We saw it at Tottenham last week. If you've got good players in behind, they don't have the players to get covered if you get in behind them, which is why it's such a wild thing they do. Lewis Dunk is not fast, right? And yet they keep making Lewis Dunk turn and run back. And look, I like Lewis Dunk a lot. Really good player. Great servant to Brighton. Great captain, all of that. But it keeps happening over and over again. You turn them, you're in. And if Newcastle have Isak and Gordon in behind. They aren't going to waste the chances that other teams waste. So I think both teams to score, absolutely. Take that, and Newcastle win is 3.25. And weirdly, I was trying to find an over here, but I looked at this one and found Newcastle went under 4.5 goals in the match, which is still really high, right? That's a 3-1 victory for Newcastle, which it feels like here. You get that at 2.75. I would take that. I also look at the goal scorer markets here because there are going to be goal scorers. Anthony Gordon missed a penalty last week, but will score one against Man City the week before. Isak, I keep mentioning, he will score in this game if he plays. And don't discount the form of Danny Welbeck. He is scoring with regularity. He's even scoring free kicks this season. He is a man in red-hot form. When you get a player in red-hot form, try and follow that trend until the trend comes to an end. Welbeck, I think, has got 4 goals this season in the 7 played. Really decent. If you fancy Brighton, double it with Danny Welbeck.
1.5 if you go for both teams to score, as simple as that. Next game, Southampton, Leicester City. You mentioned that Man United have scored 5 goals. The lowest tally, or the only team actually with lower tally, is Southampton. Only 4 goals scored, only 1 point, and somehow they are favorites to win this game against Leicester City, a team that has been okay, I would say, competitive. 6 points. They beat Bournemouth in the last game, but in the last 4 games, only lost to Arsenal, and it was in the last minute. So I guess, Tom, this should be an under, and there is good value on the draw or going for Leicester City in this game.
Definitely the under. Definitely under score lines. They are both massively underwhelmed this season in front of goal. Well, to be fair, I think Leicester now with 9 with the last game is quite a nice metric. Above a goal a game, it's a good average. But Southampton, 4 goals scored is, where's the problem, right? Where's the issue here for Southampton? It's pretty evident where it is. They do not have quality in front of goal. And this league, maybe more than any other in the world, any other we cover here, it's all about the quality of the person with ball at foot in front of the net. Can you take that chance when it comes? There's unlikely to be 6, 7, 8 chances in this game. Most Premier League games, especially with those mid-table teams where everyone is so even, I think you're looking at maybe 4 or 5 chances per game, of which 2 might be serious quality. When that happens, do I want that to fall to Archer, 𝐿𝐿𝐿, or I think Stewart played last week up front, which is fine, Ross Stewart. But again, it's just not good enough. They just haven't bought good enough players to stay in the Premier League, Southampton. I think their performance at Arsenal was really commendable. It was their best in the league that they've been able to put in so far this season. I think they scored a great goal. They maybe could have had another, but in the end, you don't take your chances. You lose a game like that. Everyone loses to Arsenal. So look, fine. But beyond a couple of positive moments in that game, the season so far has been a disaster. I like Dibbling a lot. I think he looks really good. Any player who wears their socks around their ankles has got to be good, and he is. But I can't really back a Southampton win, and I'm not going to do it anytime soon. I'm certainly not going to back Southampton goals. In terms of Leicester, I think that the couple of goals they've scored in the last couple of games have given some confidence. But again, my question remains, Buonanotte's goal against Bournemouth is an outstanding individual goal. It really is brilliant. But you're not going to do that every week. Maybe you can. And if you do, then great, fantastic. But in general, there's got to be a pathway to goals for teams. And relying on Jamie Vardy, bringing in Jordan Ayew, who's been more of a water carrier than goal scorer over the last 3 or 4 years for Crystal Palace. I struggle to see where the goals are coming from. And defensively, too. I mean, we saw 𝗀𝗻𝗄 playing for Belgium in midweek, giving away a terrible penalty against France. He just, he isn't very good. He's all right, but he's not the lead centre-half. And he's got to be the lead centre-half. He's the man with experience now in that Leicester backline. And if it wasn't for Hermansen this season, the goalkeeper, they'd have conceded many more than they have. So I have doubts around Leicester. I'd say draw. I think pick out the draw at 3.4. It screams draw. I definitely would pick out the under. I just can't bet on Southampton right now. I can see it maybe being a similar pattern to the Ipswich game where they score a goal and very nearly get over the line. So if you go Southampton, go low. If you go Leicester, go low. Frankly, it screams 0-0. So take it.
Next game, Bournemouth Arsenal. I hope it's going to be better than the previous one. Arsenal, they keep being really, really reliable. 4 consecutive home wins in all competitions since they drew at the Etihad. After this game, they play Shakhtar again at home and Liverpool away. So a very tough schedule as usual. And Bournemouth lost to Leicester. Tom, is 3 defeats in the last 4 games. How do you see this one? Is going to be tough for Arsenal, or you see them winning easily, kind of?
I think Arsenal will win, but I don't want to bill that as criticism of Bournemouth, because Arsenal, I think their away run right now, is it 15 or 16 games unbeaten away from home going back to last season? They've won some big away games in that time. I just think they are not unstoppable, but certainly a real force right now that I don't think anyone can contain, certainly not mid-table Premier League teams. In terms of Bournemouth, I actually think 𝐻𝐵 coming in for Neto in goal has been a big downgrade. And I think that's been a concern for Bournemouth. I think Neto was a leader. He was the captain. He was a big talker and was a calming and comforting presence in goal, whereas 𝐻𝐵 𝗵𝗲𝗄 is a mess. Like, he can make really good saves and look really good. Other times he comes out and looks erratic and you're a bit like, what's happening here? This was the £70 million goalkeeper. He looks like he's in his first Premier League season. He's got the a kind of twang of 𝐜𝐵𝗵𝗄 about him at Leeds, you know? Can have a great moment, have a great save, but then miscontrol a simple pass back to him. So that's been a big downgrade. I think that's been a problem defensively for Bournemouth, though I wouldn't blame him for not saving that amazing 𝐻𝗵𝗄𝗄 shot a couple of weeks ago. And I think they're asking players to overperform. Like 𝐻𝐿𝐴 and Cook have done really well in central midfield so far this season, but the plan is to have Tyler Adams in that position. And there is no Tyler Adams. When is he ever going to come back? Is he ever going to come back, the US international? So, you know, that's a concern for me, for Bournemouth, that players overperforming can only overperform for so long. And in Evan Nielsen, he's had some good moments replacing Solanke ostensibly at centre forward, but he's not quite there yet. I think in Semenyo, they've had maybe one of the players in the Premier League so far this season. But again, can we rely on him? Can they rely on him doing it all season long? I just don't know. So there are question marks there about Bournemouth that I don't think will be answered in this particular game. In terms of Arsenal, look, they have lost Martin Ødegaard, and that is an issue. But they have found ways to win games without, for me, their most important player. Maybe not their best player. We can have that argument, but I think their most important player in terms of getting them out of tight spaces, carrying them up the field, the captain of the team, to do it without him, that I think has been really, really impressive for Arsenal, and they've got to do it for longer. And that's going to mean games like the Southampton game, where it's in the fire a bit here. We're not dominating the game. We should have won this and we haven't. And they go on to win it late on. There's some doubts about Bukayo Saka and Kai Havertz after international duty. I think they're going to be fine. I'm not sure I trust that information, frankly. But I think they'll both come back in. And that, again, leads to a conversation about midfield balance and all that. But look, it doesn't matter here. They will not concede. Their defensive record has been outrageous this season. It continues to be outrageous. Conceding less than a goal a game is absolutely fantastic. And I think that they will continue more in that vein. You might say, yeah, last 3 games they've conceded a few goals. Sure, but we're throwing in kind of Man City into that mix, right? We're throwing Southampton into that mix. Sure, but that was only 1 goal. In general, taking away Man City, defensively very strong. Take away that, it would obviously be 5 in 6, right? So still under, even without Man City. Win to 0 is double your money at 3. It's something I've bet on so many times in the last few years. I can see it being a similar sort of game to maybe the Tottenham game, where they score the goal and shut it down. When Arsenal score, they don't tend to be expansive and search for the second. They're very Mourinho-esque in that way. So Arsenal win to 0 is a 3. Arsenal then to score from a corner is one of your safest bets at the moment. They are the top scorers from corners and set pieces in the league this season and across last season. And keep on the 𝗵𝗄𝗄. Like, keep running with it. He is fit. He is scoring. He is the biggest threat from corners at the back post. Arsenal will knock corners on his head 5 to 8 times in this game. So bet on them to get over 5 corners, maybe over 8 to score 1 of them. And that goal scorer is going to be Gabriel to score any time. It's 7. Take it.
Well, Tom, 2 more games on Sunday. Good ones, actually. Wolves, Man City, probably if you are looking for a handicap game, this is your good one. Wolves, bottom of the table, 21 goals conceded. And then you are hosting Man City. So probably what you are going to get, Tom, is a bunch of goals.
Yeah, I mean, look, they have conceded so many goals this season, Wolverhampton Wanderers. 21 in 7 is just nowhere near good enough. And, you know, I like Gary O'Neill. I really do. And I think last season did a terrific job. But right now they are conceding and conceding and conceding. But he would say, well, look, who was my best player last season defensively? It was 𝐿𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐻. He was our captain and best player. Now he's playing for West Ham. And now I've got Craig Dawson, who we got off West Ham 2 years ago on like a freebie transfer to kind of cover defensive issues. And who's he playing with? Well, Mascara's now injured. So we've got like, what, Totti? It's not good. Not good enough. So, you know, Gary O'Neill has had the squad stripped away from him with bad quality replacements, and we're expecting them not to struggle. It's a recipe for disaster, what they've put together at Wolverhampton Wanderers in the last kind of 18 months or so. They've asset stripped the club in terms of quality of player, and those that have come in, maybe good, maybe bad, but not guarantees. Is it Andre? There's Gomez and Lamine, the midfield three. At points this season, they've had some pretty good minutes. At other points, they've looked terrible. So, you know, offensively too, not a big fan of Larson up front. 𝐿𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐻 continues to be injured all the time. So many issues for Wolves, and I'm not sure sacking the manager, which of course is a conversation now, is going to solve any of it. This is an awful game. An awful game to come back to after international break, after the 5 they conceded against Brentford. They've already conceded 6 to Chelsea this season. I won't waste too much time here previewing Man City, right? Everyone knows Man City. There's no Rodri, potentially no Kevin De Bruyne. Beyond that, those you'd expect are going to be there. They're going to score a bucket load of goals in this game. They're going to score, if they're up for it, if they really want to, if they're switched on, they could score 5. I wouldn't discount 5-0 here. Certainly look at the Haaland hat-trick. Look at 5-0 on its own, see what you can get for that. With a minus 2.5 handicap, the most conservative one I've got is 2.88. Over 3.5 goals in the match, and City win is 2.5. City win both halves. I quite like that bet these days. 2.75, I would take that. But look at Haaland hat-trick, maybe even a minus 4.5 handicap here. Like, seriously, go for it. Because the record tells you Wolves are conceding and conceding and conceding. Nothing has got better in that international break. And City have got 17 goals this season, including 3 against Fulham last time out, when they didn't even play well. When they were rubbish, they still scored 3 against Fulham. So back them for at least 4 goals here.
5-0 is 30. Actually, let's see if City want to go for another goal, or they do like in the Champions League, for instance, in Bratislava, where they scored 2-3 goals, and then they stopped just to save energy for the next games. The best game in this weekend is Liverpool-Chelsea, and we mentioned it in our previous video. Chelsea were doing things great. 5 consecutive wins. Be careful, because they are still unpredictable, and then they drop points with Nottingham Forest. For Liverpool, the schedule now gets tougher. They are facing Chelsea here, then Arsenal. They have also RB Leipzig in the Champions League. But Tom, they are coming with 6 consecutive wins, and we saw, for instance, Luis Diaz also scoring for Colombia in the break.
Yeah, great game. Great game this, because I think Liverpool have impressed despite the things you mentioned there. I think that the Arne Slot has, you know, we don't and shouldn't underestimate the fact he's come in after 7 years of 𝐬𝐭𝐴𝐵𝐻 and made it seem seamless. Like that's not easy. And I think maybe the Klopp team outgoing, I'm sure, have helped in transition there a lot during the summer. And it just feels evident that there's been communication, there's been conversation, there's been sort of friendliness and goodwill. And Klopp left a brilliant setup for Slot to walk into, which he has come in and started to amend. Look, some of the performances this season have not been amazing. Obviously, Nottingham Forest stands out, but Wolves away, they were really poor in that game. Found a way to win, but were very poor. It's not all been kind of sunshine and roses for Liverpool. And the Wolves game is the example of that. Maybe Palace too wasn't amazing performance-wise. Palace, I think, should have had a penalty in that game that wasn't given, and that would have changed everything. But They're finding ways to win. They look solid. They look like there's plenty of room for growth and development. And to be top of the table with 6 wins and 13 scored and 2 conceded, you know, what more do you want? What are we asking for here? Better than that. Oh, play a bit better. You know, fine, whatever. But you mentioned Luis Diaz, fantastic all season long. Great for Colombia. Mo Salah, couple of dodgy games, but still looks a rejuvenated threat on that side. Alexander-Arnold playing more like traditional right back is suiting him. Offensive right back, but still kind of right back as opposed to inverted midfield quarterback, whatever else he was doing previously. I think the midfield needs to do better. You know, I do think that individually, Dominic Szoboszlai has been fantastic this season. And, you know, the whole balance of midfield looks like it's going to be right in the next few weeks. I think we are going to be talking about the best midfield in the country, but I think it's time to get there for that balance of McAllister, 𝗵𝗵𝗄, and whoever else might be in that group. I think it was Jones last week as opposed to Dominic Szoboszlai, but we'll see. But yeah, certainly I think that they've got to nail that balance now. And in Ryan 𝗵𝗵𝗄, they've probably got the player to build the midfield around. So let's see that over the next few weeks, maybe starting with this game. So loads of positives there around Liverpool. In terms of Chelsea, I think you said it perfectly. Just when we got confident in Chelsea winning, they don't win against Nottingham Forest. I mean, they've just been impossible. They've been impossible to predict in the last couple of seasons. I do think this is maybe the most consistently good they have looked in the era of 𝗵𝗵𝗄𝗏 and whatnot, the new ownership group. I think that Enzo Maresca certainly has brought a savageness maybe to Chelsea, which wasn't there last season under Mauricio Pochettino. There is a win at all costs sort of vibe about Chelsea, which maybe has been missing in the kind of learning phase of last season. Obviously, Cole Palmer remains the outstanding talent, and if he plays well, Chelsea will play well. Always look at him in any game for goals and assists because his numbers are like, I'm not saying this lightly. It's like Ronaldo level numbers he gets. Like they're insane. Goals and assists in every single game. He contributes key things to every game. So look at Cole Palmer. The issue is defensively. You know, they will score goals, but defensively, they're conceding above a goal a game. That will be a concern if you're going to have, you know, a kind of top 4 season, which they're aiming for. I have my doubts about 𝗵𝗍𝒗, and I know that Maresca, I'm told, loves Fofana, Wesley Fofana. Not sure about that. You know, Robert Sanchez makes great saves, but he gives goals away. Watch the Brighton game for examples of that. That would concern me. And I just think there are more susceptible notes to Chelsea than there are about Liverpool. And that leads me to side with Liverpool here. A Liverpool win and both teams to score brings me in at 2.75. I quite like that because of the Cole Palmer factor. Palmer being in this game makes me feel like Chelsea can score, and 16 goals scored this season is really, really good. So Liverpool win and both teams to score is 2.75. But I also quite like Liverpool win to 0. The 2 goals conceded element of this just draws me in. Because if Palmer has a great game, nobody can stop him. If he doesn't, if they find a way to stop him, and somebody surely will, then Liverpool win without conceding feels like a good one to me. So I quite like that. And also, I do it once every single week. Chelsea score first and Liverpool win. 3-1 with Chelsea scoring an early goal in the opening 10 minutes. And Liverpool continue to look like they're not even awake in the first 5 minutes of games. Love that as well. That brings you in a nice, tidy sum. But I think in every way, Liverpool win here.
1.7 Liverpool to win. Last season was 4-1. Remember, at Anfield, a draw at the Stamford Bridge, and also they played in the League Cup, and Liverpool won. Great game, this Liverpool-Chelsea, always, always. And for Monday, we have Nottingham Forest, Crystal Palace. Palace looking poor in relegation spots, no wins, lost to Liverpool and to Everton, which is even worse. On the opposite side, we have Forest doing a great season. They surprised us with that draw against Chelsea. They were even able to take points from Anfield. But they are favorites in this game. Still good odds, Tom, if we are backing the favorite, 2.4 for Forest to win.
Yeah, I mean, look, the issue with Nottingham Forest is they are going to be the favourites. And if they're the favourites, that does not suit the way that Nuno Espirito Santo plays, right? He was in his element against Chelsea last time out. extreme low block, score a free kick, hold on for dear life, then hit on the counter late on. We have seen the way they play in those games, see them get 4 points from Stamford Bridge and Anfield this season, right? So he had a great reputation when he was Wolves manager for doing that. And, it all sort of fell apart from him at Tottenham. He had to go to Saudi Arabia to rejuvenate his career and whatnot. But he's great at that. Is he great at dominating the ball in a home game against Crystal Palace? No, he's not. He's not going to be able to do that. And they haven't really got the players to do that. With Ward-Prowse suspended, having got that hilarious red card against Chelsea, that leaves you Ryan Yates in midfield, and I would imagine it will be Nicolas Dominguez. I'm here to see, but Dominguez is a good player, but I think he's more of a winger than he is a kind of central midfielder, but I have seen him drop a little bit deeper. Maybe it'll see someone like Gibbs-White dropping a bit deeper. We'll see, but these aren't guys that are going to be able to play it left, play it right, play it left, play it right. They're guys that are going to want to get the ball and drive. And that may well run into a kind of similar setup at Crystal Palace, who are desperate for points right now. They aren't going to be expansive. I think, for Crystal Palace, the loss of 𝐿𝐸 is being under-talked. He has gone to Bayern Munich and been outstanding for Bayern in the opening weeks of this season. Yes, he was injured for long spells of his time at Crystal Palace, and, he's not a Palace legend or anything like someone like Wilfried Zaha, but losing him compared to the run at the back end of last season, massive drop-off in quality. With all due respect to, I think, Sarr played last week and whomever else they put in that role, they all are not Michael 𝐿𝐸. And so it's going to be really interesting for Palace here. I think Mateta should come back in. He was dropped for the last game against Liverpool. I think they totally lost that physicality up front with 𝐸𝐿𝐸. I've mentioned to you a couple of times, Mateta and 𝐿𝐸 doesn't work. And so they're going to pick one or the other and then put wingers either side, Eza and someone else, and try and make that work. But I think that, again, losing to 𝗀𝐿𝐸 in central midfield and now having to play Jefferson Lerma in that position alongside Adam Wharton, those are issues there. Oh, this is horrible game. I think that I would probably suggest an underscore line. I'd probably suggest someone's going to score from a corner and nick it. And I think if you look at the two teams this season, where has the luck gone? Palace have not won a game. Forest have won 2, 4 draws in that time. Sort of screams draw, frankly, with Palace also drawing 3 games this season. So I'd back the draw. If you go win, go Forest, go group. 1-0, 2-0, 2-1, 3.25.
Okay, but could scream draw 3.5 if you go for a draw in the last game in this match day. Tom, before we go for your ACCA and safe bet, remember that now we are on Discord, so we are in another platform if you want to look for Oddspedia. And also we have our tipster competition. We had monthly, we had yearly, but also now we have the Premier League one, so I aim everyone to register. It's for free and to try to participate. So you know your skills, and if you are among the best, you get some cash prizes. Tom, safe bet?
Man City, safe bet this week. They're going to win. They're going to win massively against Wolverhampton Wanderers. Just to win is 1.25. You can spice it up with a handicap, but keep it safe. City win.
And the mighty ACCA?
Another treble this week. I keep getting 2 of 3, and it's really getting on my nerves. So I've picked out 3 favourites here for this weekend. City are going to go in there. Arsenal are going to win at Bournemouth, and I'm throwing in Newcastle to beat Brighton. That is your variable. That brings you to 4.17 last checked.
It's been a pleasure as always, Tom Rennie. See you next week. Bye-bye.